Hi everyone. Today we will discuss cardiovascular system. And from the name, we can guess that this system actually only consists of two organs, which is cardio or the heart, and vascular, which is the blood vessel. So this system consists of the heart and the blood vessel. The systems transport the blood. Therefore, we're going to start our lecture by discuss about blood, learn about blood. For the part number 1, we will learn blood functions and components of blood. Okay, so again, organs of the cardiovascular systems, the heart, and the blood vessel. So blood vessel can be divided into 2 or 3 types, okay, which is the arteries, veins, and also capillaries. Now, blood is a liquid connective tissue. So this is connective tissue. Remember, when we learned about tissue, connective tissue is the tissue that consists of cells and matrix. This connective tissue consists of cells and matrix. Okay, so blood is liquid connective tissue that is circulated in the cardiovascular system. And the main functions of this blood is for, first, transportation. So blood transports many important molecules, especially oxygen. This is the main and the most important molecules that is carried by the blood, which is oxygen. In addition to oxygens, blood also carry nutrients like glucose, amino acids, okay, hormones, proteins, electrolytes, water, and other materials including waste products. So blood also carry waste products such as carbon dioxide, ammonia, urea, and some surplus of ions in the blood. So this is the first functions of the blood for transportation. Second, blood also used for regulate. Okay, so this is for regulation. Helps regulate blood pressure, blood pH, body temperatures, and ionic or electrolyte balance or concentrations. So blood is also used for regulation. And the last functions of the blood is for protection. First, of course, we learned about, white blood cell. So this white blood cell protects against disease. There is a specific disease called the infectious disease, which is caused by other microorganisms. Okay, so blood is also used for protection against infectious disease. And the second protection is for losing or bleeding. So blood is also used for protect us against loss of blood. There are several parts of the blood that will agglutinate or will clot the blood when we are bleeding. So this is protection against losing of blood or bleeding. The specific study for blood is called hematology. So hema is mean blood. Okay, and logi or logos mean science of. Okay, so this is the science of blood. Okay, when we take blood samples and we centrifuge the blood, we will see that there are two main parts or portions of the blood after centrifugations. The bottom part will be the blood cells. So this part is actually heavier than the top part. The top part will be mostly watery part. It's called the plasma. So when we centrifuge the blood, we will find two main portions. The top one is called the plasma or blood plasma, normally about 55%. And then the bottom part over here, it's going to be red in color because it has so many red blood cells. It is called the cells, the form elements of the blood, and it is normally 45%. So 55% plasma and 45% form elements. If we see blood under the microscope, then we will see, of course, the plasma over here, which is matrix. So plasma is actually matrix of the blood tissue, okay, which is water mostly. And then we will see cells. Okay, remember, connective tissue consists of cells and plasma. There are three types of cells in the blood tissue. The most abundant one, of course, the red blood cell. Right, so this is the first type of cells in the blood. The second abundant one is actually platelets. Okay. And the last one is called white blood cell. Okay, so there are three types of cells in the blood tissue: the red blood cell, the platelets, and the white blood cell. And these cells are separated by matrix called the plasma. Now, again, when we centrifuge, when we separate the blood, there will be two main portions. The top one is called plasma, which is matrix, 55% normally. And the bottom one is the form element, mostly consists of red blood cell, 45%. Okay. And between them, there is a buffy coat, which is consists of white blood cell and some lipids over there. But anyway, 55% plasma, 45% form elements. Okay, so if we compare the blood and our whole body, blood is actually 80% of our body. Okay, so our body consists of 8% blood, and the rest is other tissue. So 8% blood in our body, the rest is other type of tissue, including muscles, nervous tissue, bones, and etc. So 8% blood in our body. And from this 8% blood, again, when we centrifuge it, then mostly will be the matrix, which is the blood plasma, 55%, and the form elements, 45%. Now, if we look at the elements in the blood plasma, then mostly will be water. About 92% plasma is actually water. The rest is proteins and other substances. So protein is about 77%, and other substances may be about 1 to 2%. So this is the components of the blood plasma: water, protein, and other elements or substances. Now, if we look at the proteins, the 7% proteins in the plasma, the majority of protein is the albumin. So albumin is the type of protein. Mostly this albumin is used for transportation and other function. The second abundant type of protein is called the globulin. Some of them is used for protection, like antibody. Antibody is actually type of globulin protein. It is sometimes called also as immunoglobulin. So immunoglobulins, antibodies, they are the same substances. Okay. The next one is called the fibrinogens, and this fibrinogens is the one that will be used for clotting our blood. So if you see these three different type of proteins in the blood plasma, they actually have several or different functions. Albumin mostly for transportation, like transporting the lipids, the lipid soluble hormones. They're also transported by this type of protein. And then globulin, mostly used for protection against disease. And fibrinogens, this is mostly used for protection against loss of blood, okay, for blood clotting. And there are some other smaller part of other proteins. And then for the other substances, about 1 or 2%, maybe electrolyte, low sodium, potassium, calcium, chlorides, okay, nutrients like glucoses, okay, amino acid, and then gases, okay, oxygens, carbon dioxide, regulatory substances. There are some proteins used for regulation for blood pressure, and waste product like the ammonia, urea, creatine. These are part of the blood plasma. 45% is form elements. Form elements mean cells. Okay, so when you talk about form elements in the blood, it means that the cell components of the blood, which is consists of red blood cell, platelets, and white blood cell. Okay, so the red blood cells is about 95 till 99%. So majority of cells in the blood will be red blood cell. So this red blood cell, the main function is to carry oxygen. So red blood cell is used for transportation of oxygen. It has a red color because it has a what we call the hemoglobins that carry the oxygen. The more oxygen they carry, the reddish the color will be. So that's actually telling us whether our blood is good or not by just looking at the color of the blood. And then the second part is called the platelets over here. And this platelet is used for blood clotting, protections against loss of blood. And the last one is this ones, okay, which is the white blood cell. And the main function of white blood cell is protection against disease, infectious disease. There are 5 types, okay, of white blood cell. The most abundant one is called the neutrophil. About 54 or 55 to 70% of white blood cell is going to be neutrophils. The main function is to fight against bacteria. So neutrophil mostly fighting bacteria that enter our body. The second abundant one is called the lymphocyte. Lymphocyte, okay, about 20 to 25% lymphocyte. And lymphocyte is actually consists of 2 types, B cell and T cells. Okay, so B cell produce antibodies. So antibodies is really important proteins that protect us against many diseases. And this is produced by the B cell. The T cell is the one that kill mostly viruses. Okay. And then the next one is called the monocyte, about 3 to 8% in our blood. okay, as a white blood cell. So 3 to 8% monocyte, and monocyte is very similar with the neutrophil, which is fighting against bacteria, and this one also eat the debris in our blood or dead cells in our blood. So monocyte is kind of, help us to clean the blood and protects against bacteria infection. The next one is eosinophil, about 2 to 4% only in the blood. And this is important to fight against parasites, like maybe worm parasites or maybe malaria. So this is the job of eosinophils. The last one is very, very rare, less than 1% in our blood. It's called basophils. And basophil mostly important for inflammatory responses and also against allergens that causing the allergic reactions. So usually eosinophil and basophil, they work together to fight against allergens that cause the allergic reaction. So these are the components of the blood. Okay, again, this is a diagram that telling us, okay, if we take the blood sample, we centrifuge it, we separate this, it will give us two main components. Mostly will be the matrix, 55%, which is called the blood plasma. And this one consists of water mainly, okay, and then proteins, and the rest will be electrolyte, waste, nutrient, vitamins, hormones, gases, okay, mostly oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen gases. And for the proteins, again, the most abundant one is albumin, mostly for transportation, globulin for immune system or protections against disease, and fibrinogen for protection against loss of blood or for blood clotting. And then 45% of the blood will be the foam elements, cellular components of the blood, mostly red blood cells, at 95 to 99%. So mostly our blood cell will be a red blood cell. Second is the platelets. Red blood cell, the main function is to carry oxygen. So this is for transportation. Platelet is for blood clotting or protection against loss of blood. Okay. And the white blood cells, this is protections against infections. Okay, and there are 5 main types of white blood cell. The most abundant one is neutrophils. This is for fighting bacteria. So this is bacteria. Eosinophil, the second abundant one, we're gonna follow the sequence. The second abundant one is lymphocyte. That consists of B cell and T cell. Okay, so B cell produce the antibodies. T cell mostly fights against viruses and also help us fighting against tumor and cancer cell. So lymphocyte mostly for fighting against viruses and some foreign cell or cancer cell that develop in our body. The next one after lymphocyte is monocyte. This is the one also used for fighting bacteria and debris or maybe dead cell in our blood. The next one will be eosinophils. This is for parasites like worms and also for allergy. Okay. And the last one is basophil, less than 1%. This is for inflammatory responses and also for allergy. Okay, so again, so sometimes when somebody go to the clinics or hospitals, the blood sample will be taken to see whether they have disease or infections or some other abnormality on their blood. So again, if it is centrifused, the most abundant part will be the plasma. This is clear straw color, okay, fluid matrix of the blood. 55% of blood volume is going to be on the top of the centrifuge tube because this is lighter. It's going to be on the top part. The bottom ones will be heavier. It's actually mostly consists of course, red blood cell because 99% of this part will be red blood cells. Normals for healthy people, for female, these parts should be around 35 to 46%. That's for normal or healthy concentration for female. For male, around 40 to 54%. Okay, so in the average is 45%. Okay, so this is why 45% is the average number for these form elements, especially the red blood cell. So as you see, 55% plasma and 45% is this part. The rest will be the white blood cells and platelets in this lower part. Is less than 1% of the blood volume because 99% is already the red blood cells over here. Blood is thicker than water because it has a lot of components like proteins, maybe also lipids that carried by the protein. It's called the lipoproteins, and it's flow more slowly than water itself. Temperature is actually higher than our body temperature. So 100.4 degree Fahrenheit. So this is the temperature of blood, okay, which is higher than our normal body temperatures, around 98 degree. Okay, and then the pH. This is very, very strict level. It has to be around 7.4 average, which is between 7.35 to 7.45 only. So you see, this is a very strict limit of pH in the blood. Okay, otherwise, if it is too low, then that person will have what we call the acidosis with several signs and symptoms of abnormality of the blood. If it is higher than 0.7.45, then that person will have what we call the alkalinosis, which is also have a bad sign and symptom to that individual. Okay? And again, as we mentioned, blood is actually 8% of the total body weight. Okay, 8% of our weight is actually blood. And then the volume, normally for male, between 5 to 6 liters in male and 4 to 5 liters in female. So female actually have, in average, has less blood volume compared to the male. And this blood volume and also blood pressure is maintained by, remember, there are two types of system in our body that usually maintain our homeostasis, which is negative feedback system and positive feedback system. So mostly negative feedback system is the one that control our homeostasis. So blood mostly controlled by this system, negative feedback system. Okay, so when we working with the blood, then there is precautions that we have to really learn, and this is called the universal precautions. So we have to use specific safety measures when working with the blood, because there are some diseases that actually can be transferred from the blood. Okay, so universal means that we assume that any patients that we work with have been exposed to some blood-borne pathogens, maybe bacteria, viruses, or maybe some parasites like malaria. Estimated that about 4 to 7% of new cases of infection disease is actually transmitted by unsafe injections. So this is one of the way of infectious disease enter into somebody's body. And then specific recommendations include use PPE, okay, personal protective equipment like glove, mask, when working with the blood, and also use fume hoods, especially if we know that the blood is not safe. Maybe it has infectious disease that can be transferred easily through the blood. And also when using the sharp container, it should be, there are containers, specific container used for throwing our sharp object. And also safe workplace practice such as hand washing. Okay, I think that's all for part number 1. We have talked about the blood and its main components, the plasma and the foam elements. For the next part, we're gonna learn more about each part of that components, okay, the foam elements and the blood plasma. See you on the next part.